Hello, my name is Ivo Lohmus from GuardTime, and I will try to tell you a little about digitalizing trust. Well, actually, I'm going to talk about blockchain-based data governance, which is digital by default, so it's a bit misleading. But if we take a step back, then what are the ways of establishing trust in data? Or how can you verify that the information presented to you is trustworthy? Historically, we've been using paper documents. And if the information on that paper is important, then we add properties to secure it. For example, sign them or stamp them. And in some cases, have an authority stamp or sign them for us, like a notary. But this has been working for us for hundreds or actually thousands of years, but it definitely has some issues. For sure, it's quite expensive to manage nowadays, and it really doesn't scale. So we moved on to digital signatures, or conventional digital signatures called PKI, public key infrastructure. It's good technology for some cases, but it really doesn't work for data governance at scale. And there are a few issues. One of them is cost. The technology is based on keeping secrets. It works like this, that there is an authority who attestates or signs data for you and says that yes, this is the right thing. And keeping secrets, well, is an expensive thing to do. And another issue is something I like to call the concept of trust islands. These authorities who can attestate this or issue signatures or timestamps they have domains or limitations. And there is no real way to check or verify what happens in some other domain. For example, I as an Estonian can be fairly sure that a digital signature or timestamp issued by a Finnish authority is legit and good. I don't have an actual means to check it, but I can trust that Finnish government is doing all necessary means to certify and audit the service providers and so on. But in some other examples, should I trust the digital stamp issued in Nigeria or one in Vietnam? Well, possibly, but I definitely don't feel so comfortable because there is no way for me to check other than just to see what that the authority has approved. So, can we do any better, or can we build a really scalable data governance solution without relying on specific trusted authorities? And of course, we can. The technology is called the blockchain. You may have heard of it in the context of Bitcoin or other cryptocurrencies, but it goes far beyond that. Unfortunately, I won't have time to talk how it works technically. I have actually engineering background, and I would really like to do that. But let's just state what it is. It's a distributed database where data only gets appended. So when something is already added to the blockchain, it cannot be modified or removed. And it's distributed and based on the consensus of all the users who all have copy of the data or copy of the information. So it doesn't really depend on any single authority telling what is right or what is wrong. So this brings us to the new paradigm. We can have data integrity while keeping privacy, and we can have self-executing trustless contracts and so on. And the whole ecosystem is a lot, let's say, simpler, or doesn't depend on complicated relations between parties. Or in other words, we can disintermediate trust. This honestly doesn't sound very self-explaining. So what I mean is that we can take out the middleman or have a solution where different parties can reach a consensus without having to trust an authority. But why am I talking about this? I'm not just a blockchain enthusiast. As said, I work for GuardTime, and we consider ourselves the blockchain company. We don't focus on fintech like typical blockchain communities or companies would do. We focus mostly on data integrity, and for that we have developed a technology called keyless signature infrastructure. And it's applied in very many areas. We have customers from the defense sector, some governments, telcos, and so on. And we've been doing that for quite a while now. Actually, today is our birthday. The company was registered in Estonia exactly 10 years ago, on 3rd of November. So I would say, thank you. I would say business-wise, this is the biggest differentiator because we really have a long track record production integrations for many years. From technology point of view, it's a bit different as well. Essentially, it works like a signature service. You take a fingerprint of your data, or a hash of it, send to us, and we send you back a keyless signature, or a token to the blockchain. And this is something that's based entirely on mathematics. You don't really need to trust any authority, actually even trust us. I'll shortly tell you how. And we're really scalable in doing that. I'm talking about millions and billions of signatures every second. And as I mentioned, this we just take the fingerprint of the data, so we don't really ingest any real data, so we guarantee full privacy. That's how it can really be applied in government and defense sector and so on. But it's a distributed database, managed or operated by a private company. So how and why should you trust it, or how can governments or big defense contractors trust it? Well, this brings to our trust anchors. As said, the database is distributed, so everybody sees the same picture and audit it. So today you can very easily check that you take the signature and check it, what's this public database, is it valid or not? But what if you need to prove something that some data existed and hasn't been tampered with, and you need to prove it, let's say, 30 years from now and in court? And technology is evolving quite fast. Maybe this service is not available in that form at that time anymore. So what we do, it's a bit oversimplification, but take a fingerprint of the state of the database and publish it in a newspaper. Today we use Financial Times, which gets like 250,000 copies printed. A lot of them end up in archives and libraries. So let's say you need to prove something that this signature or that your data is valid. In 30 years from now, what you do, you take your original data to take the fingerprint again. You take the signature you received from us back then, and then you ask a court expert to bring a copy of Financial Times, or if you wish, many different copies, and compute it out fully offline on your own. So it's somewhat a paradox that we are digitalizing trust by actually tying the bits and bytes back to the physical world. And we have lots of different integrations. Just one example is from Estonia. We did a project this year to secure the digital court files. We are moving towards a fully paperless governance. So it means there is no paper original to refer back to in case of disputes. So all the documents produced in the courts of Estonia get linked together and signed by GuardTime signatures, which brings this transparency, auditability, and proof value. So essentially the organization, like a court, can prove that they are doing a good job, and we don't really need to take their word for it, but we can verify it independently with a newspaper, for example. So wrapping it up, the key message to remember here is that blockchain is the new paradigm of trust and data governance, and that GuardTime is the most experienced company in making this a reality. Thank you.